Afternoon. The May 1st, 2018 meeting of the Stafford County Board of Supervisors is hereby called to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Bumke?
Here.
Mr. Cavalier?
Here.
Mr. Cohen?
Here.
Mr. Dudenheffer?
Here.
Mrs. Maurer?
Here.
Ms. Shelton?
Here.
And Mr. Snellings?
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Thank you and good afternoon. My name is Meg Bomke. I represent the Falmouth District and I'm the chairman of the Board of Supervisors. I want to first welcome a new face in the audience. If you wouldn't mind standing up, Mr. Joe Cardello, our new fire chief. And I want to welcome you and your family to Stafford County. Today's his first day. If you visit the Government Center this month, you will see blue ribbons tied to the trees out front. Each of those 42 ribbons represents a foster child who is in care through Stafford County. The ribbons also signify that it is National Foster Care Month. This is the month when we honor the wonderful people who undergo training and evaluations to become foster parents to children who are struggling with finding permanent homes. I would also like to use this opportunity to honor the other important people who make a difference in the most vulnerable population, our social services caseworkers. The number of foster care children in our foster care system is half of what it was 10 years ago, which may be attributed to the wonderful work done by our social services staff. They do many things to keep our foster care numbers low, but their aim is always to find permanent and stable homes for the children, whether it's back with their parents, with a family member, or an adoptive family. They are on call 24 hours a day because crisis just does not happen during the normal working day. So today I applaud our Department of Social Services and their wonderful system of foster parents. Thank you for all that you do. And with that, I don't believe we have any additions or deletions to the regular agenda.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Cast your votes. Tally the vote. Motion passes unanimously. And with that, we have a very special person to recognize today, Mrs. Marilyn Dufresne. And if you could please come up with Eric Olson, our Commonwealth Attorney, and our dog, Con.
Mickey is our volunteer, walks him every day. You've probably seen her, so you can see the interaction.
Come on, Con. So Marilyn Dufresne was recently recognized as one of 10 recipients of Virginia's Unsung Heroes Award. The definition of an unsung hero is a person whose achievements are acknowledged or little known. We are proud today to recognize Marilyn as one of Stafford County's own unsung heroes. As the director of Stafford County's Victim Witness Assistance Program, Marilyn continually strives to assist crime victims who are involved in the criminal justice process. With over 16 years of dedicated support to victims, she is known for her passionate commitment to the community and providing services to crime victims. Marilyn facilitated unprecedented partnerships by forming the Rappahannock Regional Domestic Violence Council, comprised of 39 federal, state, local, and nonprofit agencies that reach across multiple jurisdictions. She introduced Virginia's first courthouse dog program to provide comfort to crime victims experiencing difficult situations. Our courthouse dog, Con, is obviously with us in the audience today. Nobody ever misses a dog. Oh, look at him. Yeah, he's stretching. Maryland coordinates National Crime Victims' Rights Week and hosts the annual Molly Gill Award Ceremony, which we just had 2 weeks ago, which honors a victim survivor who has demonstrated exceptional human resilience in the face of trauma and violence. Besides helping crime victims and their families, Maryland's compassion and devotion to helping animals in need was demonstrated by her initiating a dog and cat fundraiser to benefit pets in Texas impacted by Hurricane Harvey. Many of you might remember it raised $2,000, which was donated to the Houston area SPCA. Maryland. The Board of Supervisors and the citizens of Stafford County are proud to have you working as an advocate for crime victims and the many other wonderful and worth efforts that benefit from your time and talent. We thought you might have a place in your office to display this framed picture, because I was so excited when I woke up and I saw your picture in the Freelance Star, and I went, oh my God. With that, we had the picture framed for you. So, Eric, could you hold that? And then I would like for you to. So we turned it around so you couldn't see it. So, and we loved it. We all love the title because it says Local Victim Advocates Work is no longer unsung. And she competed for this award against 10 other people in the state of Virginia. And we're just so proud of you, everything you've done in helping victims. And we're so excited that you won this award and you're here in Stafford County with us. So thank you so much. And I'll let you see if you'd like to say a few words.
Absolutely.
Now everybody can see it.
Yes. Well, it really, truly was an honor to be the recipient of this award and to have the afternoon with the Attorney General in his office. And I really attribute the success of our program to many. I'll start with Eric Olson, because he, as we all know him, he never gives less than 100% and truly defines the word advocate, not only in support of his staff, but for crime victims. And I thank my office sincerely, because without them, we wouldn't have what we do. And Juanita, Angela, Anna, and Tracy, I thank you, and they truly do make a difference in every day in somebody's life. Sometimes some days are a little more busier than others, but always, sincerely do make a difference. And their compassion and dedication to the victims really kind of, are noted. And also my long-term volunteers, Bob and Mickey here, I just want to acknowledge them. We all know Mickey kind of walks calm, but she also comes and answers the phones for us and does many other things. And I want to acknowledge Carol too, because all of our events, they kind of have been doing, helping us out for years, and I just really want to note the thanks. It takes a lot to coordinate the events, and the time that it takes, and as Stafford grows, it just becomes so, it's kind of like planning a wedding. So they really do step up and take that over. I also want to thank the community partners in Powerhouse, our CASA, Legal Aid Works for all their dedication. Really, we work as a team in the county. And lastly, I just want to thank the Board of Supervisors, all of you, and the county administration for all the support that you have shown our program for many, many years, and for attending all of the events as you do in support and participating in recognizing crime victims and making a difference. Thank you.
And you can take it if you like.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
I know it's kind of a scary thing when you Saturday morning you look down and see a picture in the starts your day.
And with that, I believe we have Julia Hammond with us in the audience. So I will invite her up. She's going to give us an update on our legislative matters.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me here. The last time I presented, we were able to give a wrap-up of regular session minus the budget. So today, I wish I had more news to tell you. The budget is in the exact same posture it was in last time. The General Assembly reconvened on April 11th. The governor sent down almost the same budget that Governor McAuliffe had introduced. The House has done their actions. Again, very small tweaks, but it's where it was before with the House, including Medicaid expansion, and then taking some of the dollars, the savings, to pay for pay raises for sheriffs, teachers, et cetera. So fundamentally, there is no giant change. The Senate is still opposed to those measures. The Senate will come back May 14th. The Senate Finance will hold a hearing. There is no word as to whether they will actually act on the budget or if they will just hear presentations about other legislators' ideas. As you may have read in the paper, Senator Emmett Hanger, who's co-chair of Finance, is for some type of expansion. The devil's in the details as to what he wants. Senator Frank Wagner, also on Finance from Virginia Beach, has indicated that he is willing to. And I wouldn't say it's a shift, but some other members of Senate Finance, Republicans, have at least said that they want to talk. I don't know that anyone wants government to shut down, which is what would happen should they not pass a budget before the end of June. We still have a lot of time between now and then. Might not feel like a lot, as I know you all have to pass a budget yourselves, and many of the items that you want to fund or depend on state dollars, but at the state level, there still is time to discuss. So on May 14th, we will know a little bit more about where Senate Finance and their staff are going or thinking. The House has remained steadfast in their position on expansion in their budget. They will certainly come and are ready and have indicated that they are ready, willing, and able to meet, to move things along and get them into a posture where everyone else would know what is happening. But unfortunately, I don't have much to report as for the budget. We still have 3 issues remaining in the budget. It was included in the Senate one, which gives us some hope, since the Senate one spent fewer dollars, that we will be set when it comes to our public day school language, the Widewater Phase 1 funding, and, it was 2 issues, public day school and Widewater, that are included in the Senate budget. As for other matters handled during reconvene, the House and Senate did come back on April 18th and act on a handful of issues. The first category are the vetoes. There are not enough votes in either the House or the Senate to override any of the governor's vetoes. 2 of his dealt specifically with legislation restricting local government authority. The first one would have prohibited local governments from requiring compensation on contractors above the state and federal minimums. Many refer to as the living wage, et cetera. This legislation has been vetoed now for 5 years in a row. And so passed again on similar numbers and was vetoed, and were not enough votes to overrule it. The second one was prohibiting localities from adopting policies limiting the enforcement of immigration laws, referred to often as sanctuary cities. The legislation passed and was vetoed by Governor Northam, and there was nothing that the House or Senate could do with regard to that. So they'll have to try again next year. On amendments, we'll have 2 categories: governor's amendments accepted and governor's amendments rejected. On the accepted side, and a big issue for Stafford County, was amendments to the wireless zoning and right-of-way legislation. All of the amendments were accepted. Thank you very much for all of the help from board members and staff in getting word out to the delegation, getting very specific numbers and information on the impact to Stafford County. It was very helpful. It didn't 48 hours out, there was some concern that the amendments wouldn't pass and we'd have to ask the governor for a veto, but all of them were included. The big highlights being that wireless for-profit carriers are treated like similar, not utilities, but similar users in that space, so they don't get any special rules. And there was reenactment clause, which requires a work group to talk about distribution of wireless services in underserved and rural areas, which everyone said was the big reason for the bill, even though the bill wasn't going to do anything to help either of those 2 areas. So now there actually has to be a work group, and there will be findings in a report coming from that. On the category of amendments not accepted, there were these, we refer to them as the mulch bills, but there was legislation seeking to limit local government's authority to dictate how and the manner in which mulch would be spread around certain properties, particularly residential ones. It was a very big battle that started in Harrisonburg and sort of grew with steam, and hence the legislation. The governor sought to soften the impact of that legislation, and those amendments were rejected. So the governor has until the 18th of May to choose whether he wants to not sign, but allow it to go into law, or veto that bill since his amendments were rejected. The other bill that had amendments rejected was the WMATA funding bill. We had talked previously, we had two bills that we cared about, the gas tax floor, which created the money for us, and then the WMATA spending plan, which dictated how it went. The final version of the WMATA bill preserved money for Stafford, additional money, so it wouldn't actually cost us, since we had won on the first initiative, which was the gas tax increase. The governor's amendments, there were 18 of them in total, sought to restore money, or the argument was that the original bill took money from the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority, and so this sought to restore through an increase in the grantor's tax, transient occupancy, and other fundamental changes. All of them were rejected. So as for Stafford's role, we are in the exact same posture we were when the bill passed, and we were happy about it. Other counties are not as thrilled about what the measure did. It's my understanding that PRTC will be meeting with VDOT tomorrow to get real numbers, so that we'll know exactly what that would mean. Now, that the budget still needs to appropriate that, so we have to have a budget to be able to appropriate the money as it comes in for some of those projects. So there's still a little hang-up, but Virginia has never gone very long without a budget if it does miss the July 1 deadline, so we'll certainly get our money at some
Ms.
point.
Mauer?
So, Ms. Hammond, thank you for all the hard work that you've done. The gas tax, the PRTC, how it applies to VRE, and what it means for Stafford. I want to ask Mr. Foley if our staff can do a deep dive into what that means for us, because it could mean or it could not mean a source of transportation funding, which is sorely needed. But one area which we learned about at VRE is it seems like there is some confusion as far as implementation timeframes. Can you go into I know it's go into a little bit of detail about that, because it's sort of dependent upon if I understand the situation correctly, sort of dependent upon what Maryland does and how Maryland implements their funding and how money goes into WMATA and how that kind of rolls down into VRE and PRTC and eventually Stafford County. So there's a lot. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I wish I could give you more, and I am not the subject matter expert on transportation funding in that compact, if you will, because obviously, whether it's WMATA or VRE, we are one of several partners on that, Maryland being the biggest. So no, I apologize, but I can certainly work on getting all of the information for the deep dive to include that as well. And that is one of the points of discussion for tomorrow's meeting, so that we can have the specifics. WMATA, right. Oh, former Supervisor Thomas is calling. There's still, even though we don't have a budget, government is still operating, and one of the bigger issues that's going to be coming up, we've had our first meeting, is the proffer study group. The Housing Commission, or the Senate Local Government Chair, Bill Stanley, working with Senator Stewart, our own, is having a series of meetings to discuss how we can get from where we are to someplace that we like a lot better. It started on the 18th. They had the first meeting, which was the description of proffer. So local governments got an opportunity, builders, et cetera. In July will be the next meeting where we're going to talk about impact fees. But the theme throughout has been locals, developers, you all need to get together and come up with something new, because we're not going to keep doing this year after year. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And can you make sure that our staff has a list of when those meetings are occurring in case we plan to attend? I'm certain there's a couple of people on this board who's quite passionate about that particular legislation.
And VML and VACO should also be trying to pull together, once we know when the meeting is and how much time Senator Stanley is going to give for presentation, the discussion, at least between the liaisons, had been we should make sure we have, again, locality-specific information, especially since Senator Stewart is so passionate about it, to make sure Stafford is included, so that we're not just talking in hypotheticals, or that the opponents to what we want can't just paint us in some sort of broad brush. And so, yes, I will absolutely make sure you guys all have those dates. And the more attendance, the better. I know VML and VACO will also be pushing it to their members, encouraging attendance, even if it isn't at a presentation level. And to the extent that people are available, it'd be a wonderful time to have more in-district meetings with Senator Stewart, and then with Senator Stanley, if anyone's willing to come to Richmond. There is also an election subcommittee that's beginning, obviously, as we get ready for addressing concerns that came out of this past November's election. Certainly stuff will come up this, and then we have redistricting to get ready for. Exciting time. That Senator Jill Vogel she is the chair of P&E on the Senate side, and Delegate Mark Cole, our own. The co-chairs have been working on the election subcommittee meeting. So again, it's stuff we follow for Stafford. If there's anyone who has a bigger interest in participating, et cetera, I'm happy to help facilitate that. The Housing Commission is going to have several ambitious studies, and one of the ones I actually received an email about today is about tiny homes and the regulation of tiny homes. In some areas, it is considered a means of coming up with affordable housing that is different from what others may paint affordable housing as. And so to the extent that Stafford has an interest in tiny homes, we have an opportunity to participate in that discussion. The final subcommittee, Senator Stanley's been very busy. He has also formed, as part of Senate local government, the School Facility Subcommittee. A lot of it stems from his relationship and talks with City of Richmond, but anyone else is invited to participate. One of the things that he seeks to do is to not just pigeonhole discussions about facilities to either localities that have a hard time paying for their funding, that if we're going to talk about school facilities and the proper way to fund them at both the state and local level, that we should have a bigger picture of what that means. And so obviously, Stafford, to the extent we want to be part of that, there will be a seat at the table. That is all I have on updates. Again, the budget, if there are questions, I'm happy to answer to the best of my ability as to where we are now. But it's very similar to where we were a month ago when I was here to talk to you all.
All right, does anyone have any questions for Ms. Hammond? Well, I think they don't have any questions because you did such a thorough job.
Thank you.
So I want to thank you, Ms. Hammond, for all your efforts during the legislative season. And anybody that's watching from home can tell that you're totally so knowledgeable. And I mean, I've seen you standing talking and chatting with some people and then take off running for a meeting. So, we thank you for all your efforts down in Richmond, and thank you for
very
coming
much.
up today and giving us a brief overview.
My pleasure. Thank you all.
Okay, with that, we were going to move on to presentations by the public. If you would like to comment, please remain courteous and respectful to the audience and to board members. It's important for you to keep track of your time at the podium. The board would like to give everyone that's interested, individuals, a chance to speak and stay on schedule just to ensure that everyone will have time to address the board. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes to address the board. If you're here to speak about one of this evening's public hearings, please refrain from making those comments until the appropriate time during the 7:00 p.m. session. Speak into the microphone slowly, clearly, and loudly. Begin by stating your name and address. Please refer to the light on the podium to monitor the time of your presentation. Green indicates the start of your presentation, yellow indicates that you have 1 minute to summarize your comments, and red indicates your time is complete. And with that, I have one speaker card, so we'll start with Mr. Dan Hicks.
And good afternoon, members, board members. I have a presentation or a couple of slides, if she could bring it up. Slide
Computer,
one.
please.
Okay, there we go. All right, so I'm Dan Hicks, 1002 Bailey Court, Rock Hill District, and I'd like to talk a little bit about Little League Baseball in Stafford County. So on the first slide, I'd like to just kind of go through it, is one of the things I'm going to request is that the board consider repealing and replacing the current Board of Supervisor Stafford Baseball League Incorporated agreement dated January 6, 2017. And I'll get to that and why. SBL reported gross receipts of just under $1.9 million between 2012 and 2016. That's roughly a 5-year period. Stafford County received less than $64,000 of that. I'd like to see SBL to pay the county for the use of park and rec ball fields when hosting Warriors tournaments. Gross receipts for these tournaments is approximately $19,000 per tournament, and they usually have about 3 tournaments per season. As per the subject agreement, the county does not receive any proceeds from the Warriors tournaments. $0. Next page, please. I'd like to see the SBL be required to fund travel team, what they call all-star taxi teams, activity from non-park and rec entry fees. As Stafford residents, for the most part, do not realize SBL is a company and not an affiliation with Parks and Rec or Stafford County. And there is little to no oversight from the county on SBL activity. SBL, as per the agreement, is supposed to promote youth baseball and softball, but evidence suggests that only an elite group of county resident youth benefit from SBL activities. Stafford County residents have limited access to ball fields due to SBL activity and poor Park and Rec Sports Division management. Next page. Thank you. I'd like to encourage that Stafford County look at the possibility of independent baseball teams utilizing Stafford County ball fields. Like to see the board task the county's the Sports Commission and Park and Rec to conduct a financial analysis focusing on Stafford County versus independent contractor administrating, managing Little League Babe Ruth baseball and girls fast pitch softball. Then the last bullet there is I'd like to see Little League baseball brought back to the middle schools. Next page. Here's an example of the Warriors tournament. You can see this is pretty scheduled, and again, we get approximately 38 to 42 teams that show up on a weekend, and they're from outside the county. They come to our field, use it for nothing. Although each team does pay Little League baseball or SBL. Then the last slide, I'm out of time, but kind of example there shows how much the fields are being used by SBL. That's the month of May. 4 fields. They're all blocked out by SBL.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your time.
Okay, would anyone else in the board chambers like to speak to the board?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members, County Administrator. My name is Sharon Foley. I live at 49 Fountain Drive in the Aquia District, and my comments have to do in preparation for your work session on the budget that you'll be discussing this afternoon. I urge you to not adopt what is known as categorical funding. My interest here is based on experience. I've worked with federal budgets for 20 years, both as a GS employee for the Department of Defense and as a government contractor. And in my experience, categorical funding results in waste and unmet needs. There's no incentive to try and save money when you know that the money is not going to be able to be used that you save is going to be able to be used by your department that saved the money. I had an experience with thousands of dollars taken away from me that I wasn't allowed to get to computers, spent on computers, and watch the department across the hall take my money and spend it on brand new computers because they had access to spend it in a way I did not. None of us has a crystal ball. Just consider fluctuating fuel prices. What is the transportation department going to do if there's a major oil spill and gas prices double overnight? Yet you've limited their budget by category. Why bother looking for sales on materials if purchasing agents know that saving money on colored paper doesn't mean that they then have more money to spend on kitchen equipment in the schools? We elect a school board to plan the budget. I don't think that our tax dollars should be spent for all of you to spend your time, which you are sorely underpaid for. You spend a lot more time than you're paid for, to plan the budget when we've elected a school board to do that very job. As you make your budget decisions, please consider the future of the county. Your goals for economic development will not be met if our schools deteriorate. Following your meeting 2 weeks ago, I've got a real sense that this county, at least the parents, are losing hope. I reached out to a parent group regarding the county budget and encouraged people to get in touch with their supervisor and share their concerns. Sadly, by far, the most common responses I received was, "Why bother?" And I refuse to give up any more time away from my kids to talk to people who aren't going to listen to anything I have to say anyway. Even today, I was asked why I was taking the time to come here, and if I really thought that public comments at these meetings have any influence over the decisions that you make. I don't have an answer to that. All I know is that unlike many states, in Virginia, in order to have good schools, you have to start with the Board of Supervisors. So that's why I'm here today. Please listen to your community. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board? Okay. With that, I'll bring it back to board member comments.
Mr. Duke, never.
One short comment is we have begun a comprehensive road evaluation program. It's in the infrastructure committee. We have a working group that's working with representatives of anyone and everyone who has anything to do with the roads in Stafford County. I don't think there's a person who would argue that we don't need more work on those roads, and we will continue and identify an objective way of evaluating the roads that need to be worked on with the limited resources we have. So I'm often told by people, you guys don't plan ahead. There's a lot of things they say we don't do, which I know we do. But one is very particular to me, which has to do with planning for roads and actually accomplishing and getting things done with road improvement, safety, and congestion both. So I just want to and I'll keep reminding the public we're working on that. There'll eventually be a report. I think we're targeting sometime at the end of the summer with some of the results. And that information will be used to prioritize the funding that we do have for future road projects and improvements. And there's a number, there's over 100 roads that have over 1,000 cars a day that we've targeted. So again, we're planning ahead, we're trying to get there. So that's all I have, Madam Chairman.
Thank you.
Mrs. Maurer.
Couple of things. Attended one of the most favorite things that I get to do here on the Board of Supervisors is attend Cub Scout and Eagle Scout events. And yesterday, I had the honor of judging a baking contest for PAC 825 in the Rock Hill District. And I also want to highlight the fact that they're going to be celebrating 50 years here in Stafford County this year. And that is an unbelievable achievement. And it's not an achievement of just that Cub Scout pack, but of the parents that are involved. And how much time that they invest in their kids. Stafford County has one of the highest Eagle Scout rates in the nation. And a lot of that, almost all of it, has to do with the involvement of parents in their children's upbringing and their extracurricular activities. And it was really just a true joy to serve on the judging panel with both Sheriff Decatur. I think he and I were both in a sugar coma by the end, and Pastor Mueller with Rock Hill Baptist Church. So it was a lot of fun, and I want to thank PAC 825 and Deputy Frank Shannon, who leads that PAC, for the invitation. Also attended the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation dinner, and with the Marines taking over pretty much all of the federal government, it was like old home week there. So there was General Kelly, who's currently the Chief of Staff in the White House, and General Dunford, who heads up the Joint Chiefs, and General Neller, who's currently the Commandant. And it was a lot of fun. As the wife of a retired Marine, we're quite proud in our household over the service that the Marines are doing, and it was a beautiful, wonderful event. I attended that with my colleagues, both Mr. Cohen and Ms. Shelton. And I'm certain that they will agree that it was wonderful. Also got an opportunity to spend some time with retired Senator John Warner. He's 91 years old and still kicking. And just what a great guy and a treasure for the state of Virginia. Another Senator Warner hosted a town hall to talk about security clearance background investigations. Currently, there's a huge backlog of background investigations, and why that's so important for Stafford County is our contractor base, and it really has a huge impact on economic development. So they're looking at, making a considerable number of changes in background investigations. It's coming out of OPM. It's going to DSS, and again, the reason that's important for Stafford is DSS is headquartered here. And so looking forward to some significant changes in that as the COO for a defense contracting company who hires cleared personnel. This is something for us to watch from an economic development perspective here in Stafford. Also, we had the courthouse area redevelopment sponsor group meeting as we look forward into our CIP. There's that giant $70 million courthouse. The courthouse does need some renovation. It does need focus. But with all the other competing priorities, such as the high school, such as potentially elementary school number 18, we need to find some ways to manage the amount of money that we have. And I want to thank staff, and I want to thank Judge Willis and everybody else that's involved in this working group to find more creative solutions that's going to bring that price tag down while still servicing the county. Also had the groundbreaking for X-Corps, in which I attended with Mr. Cavalier, another defense contracting company that's coming in and looking at the future of cyber and cyber education and STEM education. We have a lot of defense contractors around here and an excellent opportunity. There are, I believe, more than 4,000 cyber jobs that are going unfilled in the National Capital Region, and that's an excellent opportunity for us to capitalize on that. Also with Mr. Snellings, we hosted a groundwater town hall. And as we look at the groundwater on the western end of Stafford County, we have some challenges, and we're looking forward to staff coming forward with some recommendations. That will be going to the Planning Commission and then coming to our board for some potential recommendations on how we manage our groundwater and what that study means for Stafford County. Finally, as the chair of the Community and Economic Development Committee meeting, there was no action on the discussion of the TDR program for the Crow's Nest. We're still working through that, and also no action on considering the rezoning of M1 properties to A1, those that are outside the USA. We are also sending to the Planning Commission an ordinance to allow temporary uses. We're going to ask them to kind of look into that a little bit more in depth with one of their subcommittees, and also looking at revising the parking and drive aisle standards. And Madam Chairman, that concludes my remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Shelton?
I had the distinct pleasure of attending with Ms. Baumke an amazing workshop on trauma and adverse childhood experiences. I see some huge opportunities for us to include those in the future, both in the Stafford County programs and the school programs. I also had the pleasure of going to the landfill. I toured the landfill. I want to share one thing. Did you know that when we recycle glass, it actually costs us money? If you didn't know that, I think that's interesting. You'll find it on our website. And so I attended Porter Libraries. I don't know what the age group, but they were really tiny kids. And Sheriff Decatur and I had the fun pleasure of doing a dance with them, singing a few songs, and reading books. What a fun thing that was. And then more importantly, I think, was also attending Government Day, where I was able to meet many of our high school seniors who are very interested in what we're doing as a government. I hope that they had a good feel from that, because I'm not sure that I do sometimes. And so my final thing that I wanted to share with you is we have a Baptist church here in Stafford County who's celebrating their 200th year. And I wanted to give a shout out to Mount Olive. I think that's impressive. Thank you.
Mr. Snellings?
Defer.
Mr. Cavalier?
Well, a couple of things have already been covered, and I'm sure Tom's going to expand on the Student Government Day that he leads so ably. The X-Corps Solution in Quantico Corporate Center is putting up a new building. I think they said it'd be an $8 million project, and I'm really looking forward to that going in up there. And I hope that our economic development as planning staffs can be as helpful as possible for that economic development in Stafford County. Also did a little gig as a celebrity bartender at Adventure Brewery. And so that was a charity event, and got my picture taken with the biker gang down there. But we did raise some money for my charity was Aquia Lions. Then I had the Fredericksburg Regional Alliance meeting. That's a quarterly event, as well as the Aquia Harbor Board of Directors. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Mr. Cohen?
Thank you, Ms. Giles. It's been rather busy, too, as well. Attended the emergency management seminar that many of the staff and others attended to deal with emergencies and crises, and a lot of training from FEMA, which was very enlightening and interesting. Went to the Belmont Open House, which is really a treasure for Stafford County, in particular the George Washington District. Took part in the celebration, the commemorative march, and the church service commemorating the way that our area, and particularly Fredericksburg, handled the death of Martin Luther King. I was very fortunate to have the sheriff marching along with me. He seems like he gets everywhere. It was very impressive, this event, because at a time where many other communities were not handling this horrible situation in a constructive way, the Fredericksburg, Stafford area was. And the leaders there went out of their way to use it as a way to heal the community and be constructive, and that was really great to see that positive energy and to show great appreciation for the work that they did all those years ago. Attended the swearing in of our new fire chief, who I welcome. I think he's going to be rather a nice addition. It seems as though people are very supportive of him, and he has a lot going for him, so we welcome you to Stafford. Was very honored to attend the 37th Annual Awards with Ms. Mara and Ms. Shelton. Having a family member who was in the Corps, friends who were in the Corps, and students who had been in the Corps, it really meant a lot to go and honor that branch and the leadership in it, and it was an amazing ceremony. Lastly, I will touch on Student Government Day. This was an event that was started over 20 years ago, I believe, by Supervisors Toji Payne, Alvin Bandy, Ferris Bellman, Linda Musselman, and among others. I started getting involved 18 years ago and added a simulation part to it, but they started the ball rolling. Have to definitely give praise to Jeff Shover, who is on our side of the street, and Eric Powell's on the other side of the street for their work in making this happen and bringing about 18 students from all the high schools in Stafford County. Each school sends about 18 people over. They shadow some of our county staff to find out what it's like to do these jobs. They appreciate it. I also appreciate the work that Marsha Holenberger and that Missy Hall did in securing a venue for our mock board meeting, which the students seem to appreciate. Mr. Foley, if you'll be kind enough to make sure staff knows that normally I'm down there giving my praise to the staff for what they do, but it is amazing, and it's really neat to do it from this side. Also to thank the board members. I mean, the support every year from the members of the Board of Supervisors, they are there. In every year that I've been doing this, they have been there. Mr. Dudenheffer wasn't physically here because there was a snow day, but he volunteered to take the students to tour the memorial. I believe everybody else was here to speak to the students and give them some insight. Mr. Snellings is here almost the entire day every year that he has been on the board, helping the students, interacting with the students. And I know Mr. Cavalier, when his son was a senior in high school, enjoyed having his son be on the Student Government Day and serve as a supervisor. And I think he if I recognize proud papa faces, he was very proud of his son now as an educator, really showing his great abilities as an educator, helping the students. So I really appreciate all the help from staff in making that happen. It takes many people to bring something like that together, and I thank the supervisors who started it and everyone who's continued to do it. And that concludes my report.
And Ms. Bumke.
Yes, I did participate in a number of events since the last board meeting, but I was also out of town for 5 days, and in the, just due to time, since we do have a budget work session after this, I'm going to defer my comments. And with that, I will, does anybody have anything to pull from the consent agenda? I didn't hear any comments before. Okay. But before that, I would like to see if our county attorney has a report today.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have no report at this time.
Okay. Mr. Foley, do you have anything to report?
Madam Chair, just very briefly, the monthly report that you receive from us is a work in progress. After the budget's over, we're going to work on that and get some feedback from you on how we might enhance that and make it more useful to you. I will say that a number of major projects have been on hold while we filled vacancies, so I'm excited about our new staff that are starting, particularly the fire rescue strategic plan will start to get some attention, as well as the implementation of the economic development plan, which has been in place for about 1.5 years, but we've had some transition. So we look forward to kicking those off and making some revisions to that report in the future.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, now we have the approval of the consent agenda. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, cast your vote. Tally the vote. Consent agenda is passed unanimously. And with that, the board does have unfinished business. The board's now going to move to the ABC conference room on the second floor of the Government Center to hold a budget work session, which will be followed by a closed meeting. The board meeting will reconvene at 7 p.m. in the board chambers. So at this point in time, we're going to be starting on item number 12 up in ABC, which is all open to the public. We're on. Good evening. I am now opening the, hang on here. This is now the 7 o'clock meeting of the Stafford County Board of Supervisors. If we could please stand, Ms. Shelton is going to offer a prayer, and Ms. Maurer will be leading us in the pledge.
Heavenly Father, we come to you today to ask you for guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion and allow us to grow closer as a group and answer the call to the needs of our community. Fill us with your grace, and as we make decisions that might affect everyone, then ensure that we are reminded to do in everything that we do today and all that we accomplish is for the pursuit of truth and the greater glory of you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome to our board meeting. We're first going to start with Ms. Marta Perry, who is the Director of Tri-County City Soil and Water Conservation District. That's a mouthful, and she's here to provide her annual report. Ms. Perry.
Good evening. I'm going to hand you some materials to pass around.
Oh, do we have a little technical difficulty?
Well, there's some clicking that is poorly timed, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, me and my wisdom. All right, now. Well, good evening, Chairman Bobke, Vice Chair Snellings, and members of the board. My name is Marta Perry, and I'm the district manager for Tri-County City Soil and Water. Oh gosh, is that too loud?
No, that's perfect, because everybody at home wants to hear you.
Oh, I'm sure they're dying to. Okay, so before I start, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge our two publicly elected directors who represent Stafford on our governing board. It's Mike Adams and Jeff Adams. Mike Anderson and Jeff Adams. Jeff is with us here tonight. We're also fortunate to have an associate director in John Howe, also of Stafford, that I think many of you know. So on behalf of Tri-County City, thank you for the chance to speak to you tonight to update you on the district's work for Stafford and for the region. I know you guys have a busy schedule. Tri-County City is a regional agency formed by local citizens in 1944. We serve Stafford, Spotsylvania, King George, and Fredericksburg. Now this is where the fun clicking starts. So, in the Dust Bowl era of the 1930s, when our land was being stripped of its valuable soil as a result of major drought and agricultural practices, even as far as Washington, D.C., in March 1935, we were seeing skies, waterways, and even people's lungs filling with dust. As a part of the nationwide response, the U.S. government and states passed enabling legislation that allowed citizens to form soil and water conservation districts. And 1944 saw Tri-County City Soil and Water formed. Our purpose is to help local government and citizens solve and prevent conservation challenges. We're a non-regulatory agency, and we work to keep our soils healthy and in place, and keep our waterways, like our Potomac and Rappahannock rivers, clean and free of pollution. We provide programs to support on-the-ground conservation practices to reduce soil and erosion and water pollution on the farm, in town, and everywhere in between. We do this through agricultural, community, and our educational conservation programs, as well as through leadership, engagement, and partnership with individuals, organizations, and local governments. Before I describe those first three programs, I want to talk about the last item on the list, the partnership component. In addition to working with residents on conservation issues, forgive me, I'm a terrible public speaker. So, talking about partnerships that we engage in with our member governments, for example, right now, the Department of Environmental Quality, or DEQ, is undertaking a compliance review of Stafford County's local program to meet the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act, and I'm sure many of you are aware of this. One required part of all local programs is they have agricultural conservation assessments done. What that means is that all county farmland, which is 15,000 plus acres, must be checked for potential water pollution issues, and then methods should be recommended if any issues are identified. Because of our long-standing agricultural programs, we have the practical experience with these issues, and we have working relationships with Stafford County farmers to help complete these kinds of assessments efficiently and without overburdening your staff. We're currently working with the planning department staff on this requirement, and they're meeting with the planning department and DEQ on Thursday to talk about this. So this is just an example of the kind of thing that we try to provide to support you guys. And with our agricultural programs, just to tell you a little bit more about those, we help our farmers to use better methods and install conservation projects that are going to prevent soil loss and prevent water pollution like you see on the screen here. We consult, we advise, we even work with them out in the field when they're installing these projects. We also administer the state's grant program, which helps farmers pay for many of these practices, which can be more costly than typical practices. So in our last fiscal year, we provided nearly $75,000 in financial assistance here in Stafford County for things like planting cover crops to reduce erosion and developing smarter fertilizer plans that avoid water pollution. Tri-County City staff is also ready to assist when it comes to soil and water conservation outside of agriculture through our community conservation programs. We conduct site visits to help property owners and users assess soil and water issues they may be having, ranging from taking care of a stream or wetland in their backyard or dealing with landscaping issues that manifest, such as flooding and erosion. We administer the fairly new grant program, the Virginia Conservation Assistance Program, or VCAP. VCAP can provide reimbursement for selected projects, but rather than focusing on farmland, it aims to reduce polluted runoff coming from already developed properties. By reducing the amount of polluted runoff coming off of our roofs, driveways, and lawns, VCAP projects protect our local waterways, help reduce local flooding, keep our roads intact and not washed out, and they can even improve property values. I'm pleased to report that two of our largest projects to date were done here in Stafford, including $20,000 that was awarded to the county for a bioretention basin over at St. Clair Brooks Park. It's cleaning the runoff that's coming off the back parking lot over there and having it filter through soil and vegetation. In addition to consulting on projects and helping find funding for them, we also have an extensive conservation education program. We offer a wide range of materials, training, and support to Stafford teachers, helping them raise awareness about conservation and also helping them meet their SOLs. In fiscal year 17, we were able to provide a dozen Stafford County science teachers with free professional development and teacher's guides for Project WET. It's a curriculum recommended by the National Association of Science Teachers and is aligned with the Common Core standards. Each year, the district organizes and hosts the local level of the Envirothon, which is a team-based student competition where they test their knowledge about natural resources. They compete for scholarship, money, and other prizes, and have the potential to go from district, area, state, and even up to the national level. You'll be pleased to hear that in 2017, your Mountain View High School team went all the way to the state competition after winning at both local and area competitions. We offer classroom visits and workshops. We partner with schools to help them provide meaningful watershed educational experiences, things that combine classroom lessons with hands-on investigation and research so that they have lasting knowledge of their own local watershed. We also offer scholarships and much more. In fact, you have a copy of the application of our current Natural Resource Conservation Scholarship. We're accepting applications now if you know a graduate that might be interested. We organize a number of outreach activities each year. We have a citizen science program where we work with volunteers on monitoring the water quality in local streams, including Claiborne Run and Falls Run here in Stafford County. Every year, we hold our popular and affordable seedling sale. Last year, we sold 1,200 bare root seedlings, and we're part of the campaign to promote planting local Central Rappahannock native plants. And you may have seen this new guide available. This was produced as a part of the campaign, and it's in its first print run, which is free to the public. It's a one-of-a-kind 48-page full-color guide. I have a couple copies up here if someone's interested. And I'd like to close, say thank you again for letting us update you on our work, and we appreciate your ongoing support of Tri-County City Soil and Water, and we look forward to continuing our partnership with you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions? Ms. Shelton?
Yeah, I'd like one of those books.
Oh,
I
okay.
can help you out.
Would anyone else like a book? Ms.
I'll
Maurer?
just pass them up there.
And thank you, Ms. Perry, for all the work. Thank you for your presentation tonight. I really enjoyed it because I'm a visual person, and I like all the photos because it really illustrates what you all do and the impact you have.
Sometimes that's
and you
the
do a lot with very little money, so really appreciate that.
Well, we're pleased to be able to do that for you, so thank you.
All right, thank you. And with that, we will now move on to presentations by the public. If you would like to comment, please remain courteous and respectful to the audience and to board members. It's important for you to please keep track of your time at the podium. The board would like to give all interested individuals a chance to speak, so please try to stay on schedule so we can ensure that everybody will get to address the board. If you spoke about an item during the afternoon session, you may not speak about that same item again this evening. If you wish to speak about one of the items scheduled for the public hearing tonight, please hold your comments until that public hearing has been opened. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes to address the board. Speak into the microphone slowly, clearly, and loudly. Begin by stating your name and your address. Please refer to the light on the podium to monitor the time of your presentation. Green indicates the start, yellow indicates you have 1 minute to summarize your comments, and red obviously indicates that your presentation time is complete. So with that, I do have a few speaker cards. Let's see. The first one is Jeff Adams.
All right, I'm Jeff Adams, 449 Kellogg Mill Road, Falmouth. I guess the first thing I got to do is give you my disclosures. I served with Mr. Cohen on the Ag PDR for years. I'm Mr. Snelling's appointee to the Ag Board. I'm an elected director for Soil and Water Conservation. And the county wrote me a check several years ago for the purchase of development rights. So you own a easement on my property. So I come here tonight to tell you thank you for continuing the program. I really appreciate it. And I just want to point out with my math that if you had a mythical 3,500 acre subdivision, that's 1,000 lots that somebody could build on. That's a school. You can buy the development rights cheaper than you can build the school. Mm-hmm. But that's not all. Asphalt cannot conduct photosynthesis. It absorbs sunlight. It sends water downstream, and it doesn't put out oxygen as a byproduct. Healthy soils and forests do that. So anything you can do to save them, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Let's see. Eunice Hagler?
Good evening. My name is Eunice Hagler. I live at 100 Claiborne Avenue in Stafford. When I was a little girl, I was always told to go to school, get a good education, and then get a good job, and in your latter years, you can retire and live the life. And so that was my goal. I left right after school, after high school, and went to further my education, went to a good school, got a good job. And it dawned on me, you know, Virginia's for lovers, and I love Virginia. And so I wanted my children to see the Virginia that I grew up and loved. And so I brought my kids back, and it was particularly nice for me that when we see someone, they waved, and my kids were like, Mommy, do you know them? No. Then why are you waving to them? Because that's what Virginians do. And so I worked. It was kind of hard for me to find a job, and I found a job, but what I didn't know and they didn't tell me was that at any point that can change. I had a stroke and then I had a massive tumor. The tumor was so large that it was killing itself off. And so I had to quit my job as a crisis counselor and go to work for minimum wage. At the time of the stroke, I had to move in with my newlywed daughter, which was supposed to be very, very temporary because they were newlyweds. But I tried everything I could to find housing. I reached out to Section 8. There was a waiting list and all the different programs. And I actually got on some waiting lists that turned out to be waiting lists to get on a waiting list. And so, and then by not having an income to afford some place to live, I ended up staying with my daughter for like 3 years. And so just last August, the landlord was selling the house, and I had to find some place to live. And so what I actually had to do was to reach out to, on Facebook, and just so happened one of my church members had some place that I could go and live in her basement apartment. And so, you know, I'm like, okay, when I come down 95 and I see that big old Confederate flag and say, Negro girl, you're not welcome here. You're not going to find affordable housing. You're not going to find a decent job. You're not going to have health care, and your children may end up in the school to prison pipeline. And so I'm submitting to you, please help me bring that feeling of love back by supporting. And Virginia organizing never brings a problem without a tentative solution. So one of my fellow members is going to give you the solution that we've come up with. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Deborah Snyder.
Hi. I'm talking about Alice. I don't know if anybody's heard of it, the group, but Virginia Organizing's strategic memo put out this year has stated the lack of affordable housing threatens to undermine the very stability of our communities. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Thanks. Despite the good work being done by many organizations, homelessness continues to grow and housing options for working families continues to shrink. Local governments should take on the responsibility of creating affordable housing in order to foster a more economically diverse community and provide shelter for our workforce, seniors, and people with disabilities. Planning District 16 has historically struggled with high housing costs. We must do what we can to protect those who are housing insecure in order to create more stable communities. Who is directly affected? Oh, boy. Yeah.
You're okay.
Thank you. Their population in Virginia largely remained hidden until the publication of Rappahannock United Way's Alice Report, Study of Financial Hardship in 2017. Utilizing the data from this report, Planning District 16 must increase affordable, accessible, and integrated housing for the ever-increasing population of the working class. This includes my daughter, Ray. She grew up in Stafford. She attended Garrisonville Elementary School, A.G. Wright Middle, and graduated from Mountain View High School in 2007. She's been an area hairstylist, gainfully employed since 2007. She is a former military dependent, a spouse who lived in San Diego for 3 years and came back to Stafford County in 2013. She's now the divorced mother of one and still gainfully employed. Now, let me boast a little bit about this kid. She doesn't quit. She sees her life getting better and goes for it. She lives by her talents on straight commission. She's not even close to being poor. And next month will graduate from college cum laude with a degree in business administration. Okay, with a little loan debt, but they're Pell Grants.
Ma'am, do you mind wrapping up?
Yeah, I should really. Okay, so I was going to give you some statistics which I will forward to you with the remainder of the report.
That would be wonderful.
And I thank you very much for your time. And we're with Virginia Organizing, and we are want to invite you all to a meeting on housing trust fund, getting a housing trust fund set up for the area. Thank you very much. And kindly allow me to just ask how I may get this sent to you.
If you could pass that information to Ms. Hollenberger, our clerk, she will make sure we have it in our inboxes by tomorrow.
Thank you. And I forgot to give my address.
Oh, and what is that?
8 Biscoe Court, Stafford, in Vista Woods.
Okay,
Thank
thank you. All right, and next we have Bill Botts.
Good evening, Supervisors. My name is Bill Botts, 519 Winterberry Drive, Fredericksburg, Virginia, 22405. I'm very fortunate to have Meg Bomke as a neighbor and as a supervisor. As someone who served as a legal aid attorney, now retired, for 40 years, and as a landlord for the last 16 years in Stafford County, I am an advocate and supporter for affordable housing. It's one of the reasons I'm a member of Virginia Organizing. I was asked last October to serve as a moderator for their affordable housing forum at the Fredericksburg Library. Since that time, members of Virginia Organizing have been meeting with stakeholders in the affordable housing game, and those include, of course, renters, owners, local legislators or local government officials, as well as developers. They've had a series of meetings, and they've drafted some goals which are still subject to change and modification to increase affordable housing in the planning district. They refer to this as their affordable housing campaign. It seeks to increase local affordable housing, both rental and homeowner, for both the poverty and the ALICE populations planning district wide. The campaign goals, among others, include more accurate and localized assessment of need, a poverty ALICE set aside for new development, an initiative that is supported by Delegate Bob Thomas. I had a conversation with him just last evening, and one of the points of discussion was possible revisiting the proffer issue. The campaign also includes a regional affordable housing fund or trust fund and more regional cooperation between local jurisdictions. The campaign also supports proactive and meaningful implementation of any existing comprehensive plan provisions and county code provisions designed to promote affordable housing. In Stafford, all of you know that this includes comprehensive plan provisions at page 7-5, and those include incentives in zoning ordinances for development of affordable housing, including density bonuses, modifying proffer guidelines where that's can be done, and the identification of publicly owned lands that could be developed as public housing for public employees. That's all in your comprehensive plan. We ask supervisors, county staff, and members of the GWRC, and understand Ms. Baumke is the first vice chair of the GWRC. We ask all of you to meet with us to address the goals of the Affordable Housing Campaign, and to do so based on the Rappahannock United Way's ALICE report for Stafford County and Stafford's own comprehensive plan affordable housing provisions. Housing affordability is a present crisis that is only going to get worse. 51% of renters and 33% of homeowners spend more than 30% of their income on housing in Stafford. Stafford has over 43,000 households, with 35% of those households in poverty or within the ALICE population. However, there are only 131 project-based Section 8 subsidized units with a closed waiting list through Central Virginia Housing Coalition, and only 1,122 low-income tax credit units. This is
Mr. Potts.
I'm closing.
Yes,
This is
okay.
2.9% of all households. And in closing, Stafford also needs, I understand from a forum last night, 12,702 more units to meet present growth projections. We look forward to further discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, would anyone else like to address the board this evening on any subject matter?
Seems a little tall for me. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you can bring it down.
Elaine Calendar, not sure how to do that, but Elaine Calendar, 622 Lancaster Street, Falmouth. Good evening. I also attended the excellent forum last night at Central Rappahannock Library put on by the League of Women Voters. We learned about some of the valiant efforts going on trying to help people to find affordable housing. But clearly, the local governments, with a special note of Stafford, more needs to be done. And really, a vibrant community is a community that has all ages and all income levels. Our seniors, a lot of a lot of us are getting older. It's good to have young people nearby, but if they can't afford to live near us, that is a concern. Mr. Botts made reference to the problem of needing to, ideally you would spend less than a third of your income on housing. In Stafford, that's really, really difficult. Even if you are well educated and have a decent job, you may find it difficult to do that. So we need to utilize all possible programs to bring affordable housing here. I was thinking last night about the very nice development out on Plantation Drive. I think it might be called English Oaks or something like that. Little cottages for seniors, one level, small cottages, but they are affordable, and we need to do more for seniors, and we need to do more for young people in that way. The issue of income needed to afford housing points to the need for public transportation, because if you are paying too much for your housing, if you can reduce what you're spending on cars and insurance, that can really help. Stafford is way behind where it should be on public transportation. We should have comprehensive bus service throughout the county to help young people, seniors, those who cannot drive. There is really no excuse for us not doing more on that topic. I also, since I have maybe a minute or a half or something, I grew up in a planned community south of Chicago where when you started out, you lived in the rental townhouses or possibly an apartment. And then you built up that you could buy a starter home next door. So we need to have communities like that here. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Carloni, are you next? Well, you're here for the public hearing as well, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so are you speaking on another subject right now?
Yes, my dear.
Okay, just making sure.
Okay. I still have my mind. I may be old, but Ruth Carloni, 300 Mount Olive Road. I just found out yesterday that back in April of 2017, that the Infrastructure Committee went ahead and deferred action on looking into the water lines in the Mount Olive area. The homes are being built now. There's 98 altogether between two separate subdivisions, all on well and water on 5,000 gallons a month. We're very concerned about our water table. I agree so much with Bill Boss and Deborah about the need for affordable housing. Now, it can be done in several ways. One of the ways is in the apartment complexes to set aside a certain amount. This is just a very small portion of rectifying the need for affordable housing, but to have some of the apartments set aside, subsidized. Also, one of the, way back when I first came here, there was an area where there was a proffer that the developer could go ahead to sweeten up a deal, was to have a certain amount of the housing low cost. Now, getting back to this again, we're in trouble. We got all the developers and FAR and the rest of them saying, oh, we're going to lose 50% of our value of our land because of blah, blah, blah. The cluster development, okay, very quickly, we're going to lose 100% because nobody is checking our water table. We want to have you guys get in here and get some well monitoring done in certain different areas in the Piedmont Plateau area where we all live on well and septic. We're having a lot of problems with the quality of our water right now. And then, like I said, I just got this, and it's a shame. Our constituents are not getting the word about what's happening on this. This, again, is on the infrastructure. And that's about it. I just, at the meeting the other night on the groundwater study, completed study, there was just myself and one other there. And we had all the technicians and the contractors there. And it was just two of us that showed up. Now, something's wrong. That everybody came out on their evening off and made that presentation, and that was it. Something's wrong about the communication, to repeat. Thank you. Time's up.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board? Please come forward.
Paul Waldowski, 8 Picket Lane. Word of the month is accountability. And it's about time that Planning commissioners, board of supervisors, and school board members are accountable for their actions. Your comprehensive plan is out of date. Wake up. Now we got washers and dryers everywhere. Wow, it's really good. I love to watch your decision-making because your priorities are way out of whack. Also, I want to remind the citizens of the Friday the 13th $1 million acquisition on 2010 of station number 14. Can you imagine? We have as many fire stations as we have 7-Elevens. And then they're going to do $4.7 million to build one. I hope you're going to hold some Texas Hold'em games, fundraisers, so you can get back the money that's being spent. It was interesting to hear the annual report that the farmland is 15,000 plus acres. It's funny how my property is recorded as 0.0000 acres. All land should be recorded as acres. Now let me read for you. The water and sewer utility plans and road design for Stafford Meadows are to be completed and stamped by a registered engineer. I think whoever recorded that missed the word rubber stamped because there was no accountability. Then Stafford Meadows had a preliminary site plan. And it says right here, 218 apartments with water and sewer. It says, Mr. Haney pointed out. Mr. Haney must be from Green Acres. I think he was talking to Arnold the pig. Another misnomer. Then the final site plan is what really appalls me. Resolution 82-341 was approved. Well, where's the occupation permits? Where's the water and sewer? It's about time that the directors in this county are held accountable by the county administrator. And you're talking about housing. The reason we have housing problems is because we have properties that are 30 years old. People don't get water and sewer bills. It's just full of HOAs, houses of aristocrats. They're all over the place. And that's the reason you're never going to afford any kind of affordable housing. That's just the way it is. Welcome to Stafford County.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board this evening? If so, just please come down. All right. With that, I'm going to close the public comment. We have 2 public hearings tonight. Our first public hearing this evening is a joint public hearing with VDOT to consider the proposed fiscal year 2019-24 secondary system 6-year program. Mr. Rick Spurlock is here from VDOT, and we have Mr. Dayton at the dais to kick us off.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the board. I also want to introduce Kyle Bates. He is the assistant resident engineer with VDOT to help with the joint public hearing as well. If I may have the computer, please.
Didn't recognize him back there with his growth.
Hold on to my winter coat.
Obviously.
The issue tonight is the secondary 6-year plan. This affords an opportunity for some state funding for our secondary road needs. We are provided some input into how these funds are allocated, and they come with no local match requirement. We can use this funding on a variety of secondary road improvements, and when you see the proposed plan, you'll see there is quite a wide variety. The source of revenues primarily are telefees, and those are the lease fees that telecommunications companies pay to VDOT, to the state, to remain in the right-of-way. The total for this year that we're looking at is just over $500,000. We are required by state code to conduct a joint public hearing with VDOT, which is why they are present to assist with this. Our priorities in the past, we have applied these funds towards certain construction priorities and also to hard surface, state-maintained unpaved roads. We've continued these priorities into the SSYP in front of you this evening. We're proposing improvements to Poplar Road, Courthouse Road, and Juggins Road. These will have either previous or this year's funds applied, and then looking forward, there's also some future funds that we are targeting for that as well. Raven Road, Quarry Road, and Brent Point Road are unpaved, state-maintained roads that we're proposing to also receive funding so that they can be hard-surfaced. And we've included $150,000 in FY 2019 money for drainage improvements on Telegraph Road, along with some maintenance paving and some traffic services that we're putting forward. The improvements on Telegraph Road are to assist the county in obtaining a temporary signal along Route 1. So we also have some funding reallocations, money that's been previously allocated that we're shifting to other priorities potentially. We are looking at moving some of the funding to the maintenance paving category. That would provide about $350,000 immediately to look at potentially starting some of the improvements that may come out of the comprehensive road study that is now underway. And then we would also look to move about $320,000 into countywide traffic services, looking at the potential for some neighborhood traffic calming improvements that are under consideration right now. So the SSYP that's before you, the actions tonight are in the FY 2019 column, and you'll see funding in there for Courthouse Road, Quarry Road. That would be enough to fully fund any paving operations on that road. Begin funding Brent Point Road. That will be a longer-term proposition just because of the length of the road and the expense of the undertaking. And then we have funding going into the maintenance, paving, and countywide traffic services, along with the right-of-way category is the improvements along Telegraph Road that I mentioned previously. After we discuss this with the board's infrastructure committee, staff does believe that this SSYP provides a source of funding to address board priorities now and in the future. Again, this current action affects only 2019 funding. We have also identified significant future funding to try to take on some of the projects we believe will come out of the comprehensive road study, just over $2 million for that. And then following our required public hearing, VDOT has requested that the board go ahead and proceed to adopt the SSYP. That would then go to the Fredericksburg office for review down to the central office in time to get to the Commonwealth Transportation Board. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Dayton? Okay. Guess you covered everything. Thank you, Mr. Dayton. All right, with that, I'm going to open the public hearing. Right. We do have one speaker card, and that is Ruth Carloni.
I have one as well. I didn't know who to turn it into.
Oh, okay, fine. If you could give it to the clerk, please. Thank you.
Ruth Carloni, 300 Mount Olive Road. I may be old, but I can remember my name and address and what I'm going to speak about, okay? We have a terrible, sorry.
That's okay.
No, it is. Hey, anyway, very quickly. I asked about the traffic accidents on Poplar, Kellogg, and Treslow, and it's unbelievable. We have winding, dangerous roads that Kellogg Mill Road followed an old farm road down to the mill where the lake is now. And it's windy, some very bad curbs. And Poplar, these accidents are on the complete stretch except for Treslow. Treslow is only one portion. Now, the pavement is cracked and peeling and breaking away. At least you guys could see to getting that repaired, and also for shoulder, adding some shoulder. I don't care whether you do it with rocks or if you do it with asphalt. We need help. Now, this is the accident road reports. Now, these reports are greater than what VDOT comes up with, because I was told that VDOT uses a $1,500 limit. They don't report below this, if that's correct. And this is from the Sheriff's Department. 2015, Poplar Road had 59 accidents. 2016, 83 accidents. 2017, 50 accidents. Kellogg Mill Road, 2015, 23 accidents. 2016, 31, and 17 in 2017. Now, for Treslow Road, just from Poplar to Berea, there were, oh, this is unbelievable, 17 accidents just from there. And I'm sorry, it's a shame more people didn't come out to talk to you about the problems of cars in their front yards, the speed. It's really bad. Bus drivers are very concerned about this, and we've had some close calls, and they're really frustrating. I'm just sorry they aren't here, but something has got to be done. Now, also, I found out today that Poplar Road in Mountain View is only a temporary. This was just to fill in that eventually they'll be looking at a roundabout and improvements to that section of the road. But I'm just here. You know, you hear me speak on a lot of issues, but this is, people are not being treated well on these roads about taking care of them and having meetings and saying what you're going to do or not do. And the potholes also are really, oh, time's up again. Okay, thank you. Sorry, kid.
Thank you. Lisa Ferentz.
Hello, my name is Lisa Ferentz. I live at 15 Summer Breeze Lane, so I thank you for the opportunity to come and speak about my concerns on roads that are not being addressed on the secondary 6-year plan as well. Specifically, I'm talking about the 2.5-mile stretch of Treslow Road between Berea Church and Poplar. So I'm tagging on to what was just said with the last speaker. This road is narrow. Actually, I live on the corner of Summer Breeze and Berea Church at one of the blind curves, so I'm very well aware of the problems on this road. It's a very narrow road. There is no shoulder, and the grass goes right up to the edge of the road. So when I cut my grass and all the residents along Treslow cut their grass, we're taking our lives in our hands. There's at least 8 or 9 blind curves on that 2.5-mile stretch of road, and traffic is constantly exceeding the speed limit. The volume has increased as a bypass to Route 17 when 17 was under construction. GPSs were actually route cars onto Treslow Road because on the 7-mile stretch between Poplar and Route 1, there's only one stop sign to slow traffic down versus Route 17. Logging trucks are using this as a bypass as well. They're coming off of Route 1, taking Treslow all the way out to Poplar and getting back on 17 to go to Johnson & Son Lumber, which is on Stork Road, I believe it's pronounced, because there's no weight restrictions on that narrow, windy road. And I, too, did a Freedom of Information Act request with the Sheriff's Department. So in the 6 years between 2012 and 2018, there were 82 accidents on Treslow Road between Berea Church and Poplar, and the Sheriff's Department says that 52 of those accidents have been major accidents in that 6-year time frame. Excuse me, I've got a head cold. So now we're looking at new growth. There are 3 developments that have been either approved or proposed. Liberty Hall, which used to be Jumping Branch, and Truslow Ridge are A1 cluster developments. And Willow Run is looking at rezoning from A1 to an R2. If you add up all the numbers of proposed homes, that's 523 single-family dwellings and townhouses, and that will equate to an additional 4,519 trips per day just on that 2.5-mile stretch of Truslow. So my concern is that this road is not being improved. It can't handle the existing volume of traffic that it currently has, and now we're putting additional developments on Truslow as well. So I am running out of time, so I would like to thank you for the opportunity to bring this to your attention. So hopefully improvements for this road can be addressed sooner rather than later.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to speak?
Good evening, Elaine Calendar, 622 Lancaster Street in Falmouth. I'm sure that a great deal of work has gone into this secondary 6-year plan, and I support the plan, but I also support the comments regarding Truslow Road. Periodically, I take Truslow Road out that way as a shortcut to Ruth Carloni's house, and I know that it can be dangerous, trying to avoid the traffic on Route 17, of course. And, but anywhere out there, Poplar Road and so forth, it is very dangerous. A lot of new subdivisions have come in. We have approved subdivisions without having the roads to serve them. So I will support the comments that have already been made. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board?
Paul Wodowski, 8 Pickett Lane, secondary 6-year plan, SSYP. Wow. Just rubber stamp it, 7-0. Here we go. No questions. Perfect presentation. All right, Shelton Shop Road, number 1. You have a water leak, probably coming from that Fredericksburg Christian School. Right past, as you make a left from the McDonald's and go down, it's on your right. And I anticipate that across from that $1 million land where that firehouse is, the firemen will be the first that will probably fall in that hole. You don't paint the lines around the schools, especially Garrisonville Elementary School. Those are priorities. Those are public safety. And Courthouse Road, I'm tired of hearing what money you're going to take. There's a divergent diamond there. Go back and read the infrastructure and quit taking $508K and playing with something that doesn't have anything. Poplar Road is full of potholes. Shelton Shop Road is full of potholes. You got people that don't even know how to fill the potholes. I mean, they must work for VDOT. I'm going to have to come up with a good acronym for that 4-letter word. I'm anxious to see this comprehensive road study. It's amazing. We're going to get a road study, and it'll probably be 5 years out of date, just like everything else we get around here. It's all worthless data. And it's really good that the people have gone and found the accident aspects, because I really didn't know that part of it. But it's something that really concerns me because, you know, Mountain View, I need to go look at the accident report after our $7.5 million project that's created that into a racetrack. And man, I just wave at them as they go by 8 Pickett Lane. It's just amazing. You're going to find one of those motorcycle riders. He's going to be, You might find him some year, he'll probably go right into the trees, because he's going so fast, doesn't even know what's going on. And this concept of unpaved roads, that's why you have HOAs. I'm tired of using my tax dollars, which you have incorrect acres for my 0.000 acres, for unpaved roads. If you don't have a number on your road, it's not a secondary state road. So unless you have an unpaved road with a secondary number, then it shouldn't get paved. Take care of those schools, take care of those bus drivers, take care of those kids, paint those lines.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board? Okay, with that, I'm going to close the public hearing. I'll bring this back to the board. We have proposed resolution R18-88.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, cast your vote. Tally the vote. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we're going to move on to the next public hearing. Also comments, this is on Telegraph Road Safety Improvement Project. Public Works solicit public comments on the Telegraph Road Safety Improvement Project, proposed resolution R18-98 in the Griffiths Widewater District. Mr. Dayton.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the board. Keith Dayton, Interim Director of Public Works. May I have the computer, please? So the board, back in 2015, submitted a successful smart scale application. This was the first round, and we were awarded $8.8 million for some safety improvements along Route 1 in the area near the intersections of Telegraph Road and Woodstock Lane. Our original project included constructing a slotted left turn lane onto Woodstock Lane, and then a fully signalized intersection at Telegraph Road. The project would then allow protected left turn movements off of Telegraph Road onto Route 1. Those improvements, however, would have affected floodplain and wetland areas. This was our successful project in the Telegraph Road area. The big curve that you see out of the original alignment did a great job of squaring up that intersection properly. You'd have two left turns and a right turn, all signalized and aligned with the commercial entrance on the west side of Route 1. However, that loop would have taken it into the floodplain and the wetlands, and there would have been some issues associated with that. On the north side near Woodstock Lane, you'll see the slotted left there and a slight realignment of Woodstock Lane to shift it away a little bit from the tailor store, which would improve some issues that surrounded there, but then it would revert back to a very, very narrow Woodstock Lane for those persons trying to access the Widewater area. So after our award, the owner of parcel 21160 offered to donate the necessary right-of-way if we shifted that project and provided a new fully signalized intersection across their property, and this would roughly split the improvements of Woodstock Lane and Telegraph Road and create a new road and a new intersection. Their benefit would be enhanced development potential with a fully signalized intersection on the corner serving that B2 zone parcel. Benefits to the county would be not only the enhanced commercial development, the same would help us as well. It would also improve signal spacing in that area, reduce costs associated with the right-of-way acquisition and utility relocation, eliminate the wetland and floodplain impacts, which would once again help the cost of the project, and provide motorists a better access into and out of the Widewater area rather than using Woodstock Lane. In support of this alternative, the county funded a study. Ultimately, that study determined that shifting the project and creating this new signalized intersection would not negatively affect traffic along north and south of Route 1. So the amended project would provide that new intersection between Woodstock and Telegraph that would, again, be fully signalized, 2 left turns and a right turn. It would also align with another commercial entrance on the west side of Route 1. Telegraph Road to the south would become right in, right out only, not allowing that dangerous left turn movement southbound onto Route 1 that folks have to make right now. And at Woodstock Lane, we would retain that slotted left on the north end of the project. The green that you see along that corridor, that's concrete median. The intent of that is to prevent left turn movements into and out of those commercial areas along the west side of Route 1. That has the effect of creating an unsafe condition when you're crossing a busy road, and also if you're stopped in the left lane waiting for traffic to clear, you're inhibiting the movement north and south. So that is one of the provisions that we made in our proposed modification to the Smart Scale project. So this project was ultimately sent down to the VDOT Central Office and their Infrastructure Investment Division, they call it. That is the group that monitors and manages the Smart Scale awards and those projects. They reviewed it, and they have conditionally approved us making that change in the project, but they want the board to make certain commitments. And one is that they have a public involvement process, complete it, and address any comments that may come out of that public involvement. They also include access enhancements along Route 1 and apply any cost savings overall to the project to these modifications. And what you're seeing with the concrete median would address that concern, although we have agreed and committed to seeing if we can fit a 2-way left turn lane along that corridor that would allow a safe way for folks to turn into those businesses, and also they could come out on 2 lanes and then wait for an opportunity to merge into the northbound traffic. So we would take a look at that, but there are right-of-way impacts that would be associated with that, and we are concerned about the cost of that, but we have committed to evaluating that and see if we can fit that in to the overall cost of the project. Then the board must commit to fund any cost overruns without requesting any additional state funds. So those are the 3 commitments that they've asked for. The public hearing tonight is intended to address that first commitment. The concept that was submitted to VDOT and that you have seen tonight will address the access enhancements, although, once again, we would look at a 2-way left turn lane along that corridor. And we believe those enhancements can be incorporated within the budget limits as they stand right now. We do believe that with the reduced right-of-way costs, the reduced utility relocations, the reduction in wetland impacts, the improved overall constructability of this project as proposed will ensure that the project cost will not exceed the awarded amount. So we feel comfortable in advising the board that is a safe bet. So our recommendation, following the opportunity for public input, is recommending that these commitments be provided to VDOT by the approval of Resolution R1898. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Dayton? Okay, thank you. With that, we'll open the public hearing. Would anyone like to address the board on R18-98?
like to speak last. I like to have the last word. This is one of my favorite ones. Paul Wadowski, 8 Picket Lane. We do believe, that's a subjective statement, and we feel it's right, another subjective statement. How much was that study? Was not divulged, which is objective. Public involvement doesn't exist in this county. I am the public involvement. The Griffiths Whitewater District will become part of the gerrymandering process. It'll become the northeast section of the new plan. So get your election boots on for 2021. The Chesapeake Bay watershed is very important in this area. Stormwater management. And when I hear someone say, we do believe, we have floodplains and wetlands all through that area. We all know about the danger there. But thank God that there's a cross there, so that protects some of them indirectly, especially those who don't have any common sense. It just amazes me how 2015, here we are in 2018, $8.8 million, and we get these 3 conditions out of the blue. Amazing to me. How can we have such growth in this area? And how did Telegraph Road, which it'll be interesting to see in the 2020 census, I want to see what kind of population growth has come up in that area, because as we all know, we are gerrymandered, so we'll see where that comes about. But the citizens need to realize that stormwater management is precedent in this, especially as you get on the other side of I-95, which is where Griffiths, Whitewater, Aquia, and maybe even Falmouth live. But you know what I think of Falmouth, that's the town of Falmouth, 1726. Then we can take a ferry to Ferry Farm.
Thank you.
Elaine Calendars, 622 Lancaster Street in Falmouth. Though I'm from Falmouth, a few times a year, I get up to Telegraph Road. I know how dangerous that intersection there has been as long as I've lived in the county, and clearly y'all have put a lot of effort in to try to resolve the problem. And I support your efforts. I am wondering about the left turn lane into the businesses with a median blocking that. I see that as a problem, even though I'm from Falmouth. Occasionally I do go up that way, and I take a left turn lane. Obviously, at certain times of the day, you can't do that, but at other times of the day, it's safe to do so. I would think that an access road like they have up in Northern Virginia, Arlington, wherever, is helpful for businesses. You know, if you can manage to have an access road, have a left turn at a light, but then people can get onto an access road and go to businesses. I haven't studied the plans, so I don't really know exactly what you have there. But I do think there is reason for concern about totally blocking left turn into businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board? Okay, with that, we're going to close the public hearing, and I'll bring it back to Mr. Cavalier in the Griffiths Whitewater District.
Well, after 18 years of working on this, I think I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve this.
Okay, any discussion from board members? All right, with that, cast your vote, please. Okay, that motion passes unanimously. With that, Mr. Snellings, would you please read us into closed session?
A resolution to authorize closed meeting, whereas the board desires to hold a closed meeting for one, discussion regarding recruitment for the department head position of Public Works, and two, discussion and consideration of the acquisition of real property for a public purpose, where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the board. Whereas pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A1 and A3, such discussions may occur in closed session.
Second.
Okay, cast your vote. Tally the vote. The board is now in closed session. Certify?
So moved.
All right, cast your vote. Tally the vote. Motion passes unanimously. The 7 o'clock meeting is now adjourned.